Story 1. I would leave because trust is the foundation of love. When you give your heart to someone, you are giving them your vulnerability, your loyalty, and your belief that they will protect it. Cheating is not just a mistake. It is a choice that shatters that foundation. Story 2. Absolutely. I would leave them. Why would I want to stay with someone who does not care about or respect me? Story 3. Once I made the mistake of not leaving immediately and returning later. Never again. Story 4. I have been cheated on before. I tried to forgive and forget, but I could not. I even had a hall pass that I could never bring myself to use, though strangely there were offers. I regret everything about that and should have ended it in one swoop. I wonder if those offers would have still come in. Story 5. The marriage would be over the second I found out. No questions asked. Story 6. I am not going to inflate the ego of someone who, by their actions, is saying they are above me and that I do not have enough self-respect to leave. I would rather raise my children alone than be with a mother who sees me as a joke. Story 7. A resounding yes. I stayed with my ex-wife after she cheated on me. Took a long time to rebuild trust, and then it happened again. The second time, I felt ashamed and left. Story 8. He cheated. I stayed. He cheated again, so I changed the locks. I will never give a cheater a second chance, no matter how much I love him. Story 9. He cheated. I did not leave because of our child. Fast forward 6 years and I won out. He is extremely emotionally unavailable. I do not think he would cheat again, but our relationship is not what it once was. I recommend leaving if you can. Story 10. It would absolutely kill me, and I would never get over it. I love him too much. A life obsessed with the possibility of him doing it again is not worth it. We have one life. Why would I spend it that way? Story 11. Without question, I have been cheated on multiple times while remaining 100% faithful. I left every time without hesitation. Story 12. Yes, once someone breaks your trust like that, it's over. Story 13. For sex? No. For love or intimacy? Yes. Sex is not a big deal to me either way. I would give my blessing for my partner to have sex elsewhere if they wanted, so I would not consider it cheating. I would not like it if they were secretive about it, but it still would not be the end of the world. If they were conducting a whole other relationship in secret, no. I could not abide that. Not because polyamory itself would be a deal breaker, but because that level of duplicity would be. To lie that much and to keep so much of your life and heart secret that you are hiding an entire romantic relationship, we are done. Because clearly you no longer think of me as a partner worth sharing your life with. Story 14. I'd ask, why didn't you invite me? Mainly because I had told her that if she were ever to do that, she should at least invite me. Story 15. When we were dating, we agreed cheating was a deal breaker. No therapy, no conversations, pack your stuff and leave. Now that we are married, the same agreement stands. If he cheats, he leaves. No therapy, no conversations except to divide assets, and lawyers will be involved. We are child-free, so it would be a clean break. To be honest, if he ever cheated on me, divorce would be a kindness. He would not know peace until he left this earth. Story 16. I have to say it really depends. I probably would not end a marriage over a single indiscretion, although I would want to know why it happened and how long it had been going on. I would be more concerned about emotional infidelity than the sexual act. We often treat sex as the ultimate boundary, but partners can do far more harm through ongoing emotional betrayal than through a brief sexual encounter. Story 17. Absolutely. Zero trust. I found out my now ex-husband was cheating when I came home from work. I worked from 4 to 11 p.m., and he was on a FaceTime video call with another woman. I listened for 30 minutes before I turned the lights on. Then a package from him arrived in the mail. I opened it just to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. Then I glued the package back together. I am happier than ever without him. We have 2 young children together. He not only cheated on me, he also cheated on his children. Story 18. Obviously, if they really felt they needed to experience something else, all they had to do was talk to me about it. We would figure something out. Story 19. If you are asking for honesty, Please do not downvote me for having an unpopular answer. No, I would stay. I would require him to make it up to me and try to understand why he felt the need to step out. I believe we could work through it and perhaps become stronger. Story 20. Probably not. Much depends on context. Sex is one aspect of a relationship, but not the most important part. I would not give up the bigger picture over that. Context would dictate the response. 25 years ago, I would have felt differently, and it is okay if you do not understand my position. It is my position, not yours. Story 21. I think it depends. There is a big difference between a mistake and an affair. If my partner got drunk and made out with someone or even slept with them on a one-off basis, sure, that would hurt me. It would have consequences for our partnership and friendship for a while. But if it ended there, they told me, and the issue was not repeated, our partnership is strong enough to work through it. But an affair? No way. I have a friend whose partner was sleeping with another man behind his back for the better part of a year. For a long time he knew something was off, yet every time he tried to find out whether there was something wrong with the relationship, he was lied to and gaslit. That is not a mistake. It is a campaign of falsehoods, and trust really cannot bounce back from that. Story 22. I am divorced. I did not initiate it. I discovered that I could forgive adultery, and I did not want the divorce. Now that I am divorced, I can see how wrong we were for each other. I would not take her back, but not because of the cheating. Story 23. For me, infidelity would be a deal breaker. I believe in loyalty and honesty, and once those are compromised, it's tough to see a way forward together. Story 24. If it was a one-off, I would want to talk it through and see if it is something that needs support or if it was done to progress toward leaving the relationship. If it was a sustained affair, I would end it first and talk later. Story 25. Unpopular Reddit opinion. No, I love him unconditionally. He is stuck with me for life. However, if it were to happen, we would discuss opening the relationship for both of us, because if he is going to get a side piece, so am I. If the roles were reversed, I know he would divorce me, as he should. Story 26. Once a cheater, always a cheater. My biggest mistake cheated on me 3 times before I realized it. She claimed to be the victim. I forced her to do it. Story 27. Yes, but she would not. If I did, she would drop me like a bad habit. Treat the people you love like you love them. Story 28. My husband is demisexual, and if there had been any physical cheating, it would probably have been highly emotional as well. As a fellow demisexual, that double blow would shatter me. He has already betrayed and hurt me in other ways. It would not take cheating to end this marriage. Story 29. Yes. Immediately and permanently, without a bit of hesitation, remorse, or willingness to hear a word from them. Why? They cheated. It was the ultimate disrespect. Story 30. I cannot say with 100% certainty until it happens. Story 31. She did, and I did as well. I don't know if I could handle it a second time, so I would probably stay this time, laughing out loud. Story 32. Absolutely no questions asked. I am not a forgiving person. Once my trust is broken, it is impossible to get it back. Story 33. Assuming you mean going behind my back, yes, I would leave her immediately. Not because of the sex, but because of the broken trust. If my partner had that urge, she should have talked to me about it. I have no idea what would come of that, but that is the proper approach, not going behind my back. Story 34. Absolutely. People like to pretend they are under a spell, but you know that what you are doing is wrong. Story 35. It is not as simple as people here seem to think. Life ebbs and flows, and relationships require work. It is possible to be unfaithful and still love each other and resolve the issue. Imagine that many of the responses come from Americans who marry at 19 because they believe Jesus told them to. Story 36. Maybe. It would probably depend on the circumstances. I have become more open-minded as I have grown older. What bothers me more is the lying and sneaking around. Story 37. Hell yes. Instantly. Cheating is not just a physical act. It requires sustained lying and betrayal. If your partner is lying to you to maintain access to your body, what does that sound like? Disgusting. Absolutely not. Story 38. My fiancé cheated on me, but never physically. It was online sexual activity. He exchanged sexual messages and received explicit photos 2.5 years ago. He has done everything possible to show it was a mistake. He was also using drugs at the time, which I believe contributed. Whether someone can be forgiven depends on the person and the severity, but if they want to change and take accountability, there is a chance. I forgave him because I love him. He has acknowledged his mistake, has not repeated the behavior, shared passwords, and has done everything to rebuild trust. Now we have an amazing relationship. I think redemption is possible. Story 39. Yes, because I don't let shit go. I would bring it up 24/7. It would just be better to go our separate ways after I break his most expensive things, of course. Story 40. Absolutely. Trust is the basis of any relationship. If someone cannot honor that trust, they do not deserve to be in it. I have zero tolerance for cheating. If you are unhappy in a relationship, speak up like an adult. If the issues are irreconcilable, separate. Story 41. Yes. Physically, emotionally, mentally. Bye. I'm not going through that again. Story 42. I would be gone. The reason is this. Even as a man, I have always gotten along better with women than with other men. When we met, if you had me go through my list of friends, it would be like 2 guys and 20 girls. Unfortunately, my 2 male friends moved away. For reasons of appearances, I distanced myself from my female friends. I have not been able to build friendships with other men, and to avoid any risk of cheating, I will not talk to women I am not married to if it can be avoided. She has 100% access to my phone anytime she feels the need. I cooperate with any questions about my whereabouts and what I am doing. I hide nothing. I do not cheat. If I go through all of this and she cheats on me after all of it, it is over. Story 43. No. I would profit from it and ask for things I want in exchange for my forgiveness. We're all imperfect human beings. Story 44. I cannot expect my partner to only want to have sex with me for the next 30 years. We are human. That is not realistic. Story 45. I always thought I would leave until it happened, and I was not in a position to do so. I am still going to leave, just not now. Story 46. If it was just sex, no. If it was an actual relationship, yes. Story 47. Better question. After leaving an unfaithful partner, living apart and dating other people, would you be intimate with them again? Story 48. I would talk to a therapist who specializes in relationships and have both of us go. I truly believe everyone deserves a second chance and can change. Story 49. It depends. I have been married for almost 50 years, and I have too much invested to say I would automatically leave. If it were an ongoing affair, I would probably leave. A drunken one-night stand would require a great deal of thought. Story 50. Absolutely. I am a very calm, understanding person. If you talk to me, we can very likely reach a mutually acceptable solution, so going behind my back is unacceptable. Story 51. Probably not. We have been through hard times before, and we will get through this too. Story 52. I would be appalled, but I would stay for the sake of the children until they could handle a separation. Story 53. I ended a 17-year marriage after I learned that my husband had cheated on me 8 years earlier. I would do it again. Story 54. He almost did. I did not leave. We went to therapy. He made huge changes after we spent 3 weeks apart, and he did not see his son. He seems like a different person compared to before. I will never trust 100% again, but I am very close to it. I am happy, he is happy, and he is noticeably happier than he was before. And our children are happy. Our first child was only 11 months old at the time I found out. I would have left if we did not have children. I am a firm believer in doing everything you can to make it work when there are children involved. I would not stay through abuse or years of mistreatment, but I think it is worth working on the relationship. Story 55. I would say, how did you manage to marry me without my knowledge? There was a woman in Texas, Kristen Marie Spearman. who was obsessed with her ex and managed to get legally married to him without his knowledge. Police said she got a local reverend to sign the marriage license, which she then filed with the local clerk's office. She then left a copy at the man's home. Imagine that. You wake up married to your stalker ex. Story 56. I would like to say yes, but to be truthful, it probably depends a little on the circumstances. Story 57. Depends. How did I find out about it? Did she tell me out of guilt? Or did I find out on my own? Does she want to save our marriage? Or is she done? Was it a one-time incident or ongoing for years? There are a lot of factors I hope I never have to consider. Story 58. I would likely have forgiven my previous partner. I would not have forgiven the person I married. The circumstances and issues were different, and I was a different person then. Story 59. Yes. It would show a lack of self-respect, not just on their part but on mine if I stay. Story 60. Yes. Maybe she can change for the better, but it will not be with me. I would never be able to trust her again. Story 61. Not 100%, but I would be very disappointed in him. We have practiced ethical non-monogamy in many aspects of our relationship. I would expect him to trust me to talk first and not do anything else beforehand. Story 62. It's going to really depend on what's happening. A one-night mistake is more likely for me to forgive, especially if the person comes clean about it. An affair or anything that involves consistent lying, such as saying I have to work late tonight, is not acceptable. An emotional affair is worse. Story 63. When I began dating my now wife, I told her I am a forgiving person. I can forgive a lot, but infidelity is the one thing I could never forgive. I do not believe in cheating, and I could not trust a partner who cheats. We have been married for 13 years and have 2 children. We have had our ups and downs, but through all the bad times we remained faithful to each other. If you truly love another person, you would never want to be with someone else, not even for a night, even through the worst of times. That is how I see it. Story 64. I would leave silently and never look back. If you stay, you are telling your spouse you accept it, which you do not. To me, that is betrayal. They knew what they were doing and did not think about their spouse when they engaged in infidelity. If you feel the urge, end the relationship first. Do not devastate another person. That is just my perspective. It does not mean I am right. Story 65. As opposed to being dishonest, why even begin the question with that? Story 66. If I had one, I would leave without hesitation. My love for them would be thrown out the window as soon as I found out they had cheated. The trust would be broken and could not be repaired. The relationship would be over. Story 67. It depends. Are they genuinely remorseful and ashamed? Are they offering to cut all contact with that person without my asking? Do they love me above anyone else? Or are they being disrespectful, giving me pushback and gaslighting me into believing? It is not a big deal. You can always tell if they secretly wish you were not together in the first place and if you are just an obstacle on their path to pursuing someone else. It is a shame not everyone admits that. People are too afraid to make waves. Story 68. They would not have to. They would have already left. Story 69. Overall, yes. But if I still love them enough, then hell yes, I'd stay. Story 70. For me, my wife is bedbound, so every time I go out there is a possibility she might call someone if she wants to. I do not think she would. It is my responsibility to take care of her because her condition is mostly my fault for not encouraging her to seek help when she was depressed. This is part of my penance, and I am fine with that. I love her and want her to be happy. Story 71. I would very likely leave. I would want to find out why, even though the answers might torment me. There is no excuse for infidelity, although there may be reasons. Saying I was lonely is an excuse, not a reason. If that were the only explanation, I would leave. I would probably leave regardless because I would always feel that I was not enough. The person she cheated with would remain between us like an invisible third person, and I do not think I could ever get over it. Story 72. Absolutely. My wife and I have been together 22 years. If she just up and decides to cheat now, that would be very deliberate. I would never be able to trust her again. She would be lucky if I did not burn everything she owns. Story 73. No. I'm too old for this, and I know I wouldn't have the energy to manage finances and learn how to be on my own again. I would just let the relationship be open and not care. Story 74. What if the two of you have not had sex in a long time and have slept separately for a long time? Communication has totally broken down, you are merely civil to each other, and you cannot initiate a divorce because you have very sensitive children ages 13 and 9, and it costs far more than either of you can afford. Story 75. It depends. If he gave me a sexually transmitted disease, then no. It would depend on whether he is sorry and willing to put in years of reassurance. I would also want permanent access to his phone, updated boundaries, and a free pass. Story 76. Absolutely. I don't care how long it's been or whether there are children. Story 77. It totally depends on the circumstances. Unprotected sex multiple times. I do not think I would get over it. People are complicated. I could see getting over it if it were a one-off, if he told me right away, or if there were other factors. Story 78. I don't know. It would depend on why she cheated and where we see ourselves going from there. I hope I never find myself in this situation, though. Story 79. No. I'll ask if she wants an open relationship. If she does, that's that. At times like these, it's not worth the hassle and divorce for me, to be honest. Story 80. Shattering that trust would end the marriage, and she would have made that decision by cheating. Story 81. Context and circumstances make a big difference, so it depends. I would be more upset that they did not feel they could talk to me about whatever was happening that led them to it. I am a pretty understanding person and might consider opening the relationship. There is no reason to lie, so what that says about their character would be difficult to get over. Story 82. Yes. I would leave without question. If she crossed that line, there would be nothing to discuss. It is a trust issue. Once broken, it cannot be repaired. I understand that some people can get past it, but I am not one of them. If the woman I was with made a conscious choice to engage in any behavior that could allow another man to do naked push-ups inside her, or if she chose to bow her head below another man's waist, I would grant her request to end the relationship immediately. Story 83. Yes. It is not a mistake. It is several mistakes stacked on top of each other. When you have a dozen different opportunities to back out and you do not, I believe I am justified in saying that I am reciprocating the level of care she invested in the relationship at that time. Story 84. Yes, she did multiple times. She is currently living with her boyfriend while waiting for the divorce proceedings to run their course. It was the worst relationship of my life. Laughing out loud. Story 85. She did, and I did too. If she does not respect me, she does not truly love me. If I had stayed, I would not have been respecting myself. Story 86. I would leave. From day one, I made it clear I have no tolerance for infidelity and would not hesitate to leave no matter how attached I was. Story 87. Yes, in a heartbeat. I did not take any time to think about it. I wonder if that means something? Story 88. Movies convinced kids that affairs just happen. Think about it. How many of your favorite romantic movies feature protagonists who cheat? In real life, cheating rarely just happens. People do not accidentally end up having sex with someone else's partner. Consider how hard it is to meet someone, hook up, and go through with sex, an act that gives people time to think and be aware of what they are doing. People make deliberate choices to cheat. Much of this comes from movies convincing both parties that cheating is more natural than it is. Another factor is that no one wants to be seen as a victim. Many people will grin and carry on because the thought of being cheated on and taking it seriously threatens their ego more than admitting that the person they were with prioritized physical pleasure over their pain. Some people get angry at those who point this out when they should be angry at the person who hurt them. The last thing people want is to be perceived as victims, even if that means continuing the cycle of abuse and victimization to maintain appearances. Story 89. Yes. We agreed to a monogamous marriage. If they broke that agreement, they were not honest about their happiness or their willingness to be in the relationship. Story 90. In all probability, yes, but not much in life is absolute. Story 91. When I was 19, I was dating a girl for a few months and working a lot of overtime. She cheated on me and came to me crying. I was raised by an abusive father who taught me to be petty and to retaliate when crossed. I tried not to become that person, and I told her I forgave her and that we could work things out. Over the next few months, we grew closer. I got to know her family and her sister. Some people can guess what happened. I slept with her sister and even let her catch us on purpose at my place. That was about 20 years ago. Since then, I have been in therapy to unlearn the harmful lessons my father taught me about manipulation and revenge. I hurt family and friends. I slept with my brother's girlfriends to get back at him, and I got my sister expelled from a religious school for living in a common-law relationship, among other things. Now I would not forgive. I would do my best to move on. Story 92. Not necessarily. I do not view cheating itself as an unforgivable sin. However, in most cases, cheating indicates underlying problems that may mean the partners should consider separating. I would want to understand the cause and proceed from there. Story 93. Yes, being cheated on is one of the worst feelings. I told my wife that was a non-negotiable. Story 94. Not necessarily. A true partnership requires understanding, solidarity, and communication. An admission that I really love someone else would probably mean a breakup, but saying I am feeling really confused or that I drank too much and made a mistake does not warrant appending my life. Those statements warrant more discussion and working things out. Maybe it is because I can sometimes understand the urges, so I understand. Story 95. I want to forgive him and move on because I love him, but I know I cannot. I would leave him so I would not have to spend the rest of my life wondering whether I measured up to her or whether he would do it again. Story 96. She did so during coronavirus disease 2019 and contracted herpes. I was not going to stay with that hot mess. Story 97. Married for 27 years. I probably would not, but I know myself and the marriage would deteriorate because I am petty and verbally vindictive. If I could not get past it, it would destroy whatever we had left. Story 98. No, I would want to try to work it out and give him another chance. Nobody is perfect, for better or worse. Story 99. My partner forgave me after I cheated. I know I deserve judgment, but it took a lot of work for us to rebuild the trust and love we had for one another. There will always be ups and downs as you rebuild that trust. We have been stronger than ever and are currently engaged. Not everyone has the same experience. In many cases, it is best to leave the relationship for your personal well-being and mental health. It is a roller coaster. But if you are willing to make the commitment and endure the ups and downs, it can make your relationship stronger over time. Story 100. Yes. The question is, why would I not? People say it is not so black and white and that it is easier said than done, but I disagree. It is that simple for me. I have done it before and would do it again. I do not want to hear why or any other bullshit excuses. Just leave me alone forever. Story 101. Not my spouse, but my girlfriend cheated on me with her childhood friend. I broke up with her right away when I found out. Cheating is a cowardly, disgusting act. Story 102. Of course. Why in the world would I not? That is a huge betrayal. Story 103. Yes. I am even polyamorous, and cheating is still unacceptable. If you cannot trust your partner to abide by the terms of your relationship, then you cannot trust them with anything. Story 104. I would not leave my wife. If she just had sex with somebody, that's not that bad. If she fell in love with somebody, it would break my heart. Story 105. It would be difficult to unravel a marriage, but avoiding it just because it is difficult is not the right thing to do. Story 106. 100%. Once loyalty and trust are gone, a relationship is not worth it. Without them, being single is far better. Story 107. Yes, I could never be with a liar. The cheating is not even the worst part. It is the lying surrounding it that would infuriate me. I do not understand how other people can forgive. Story 108. I feel like there are 1,000 refusals before cheating happens. First come playful glances and flirting, then conversations, exchanging contact information, and inappropriate messages. Story 109. Once that trust has been broken, it can never be repaired. So cheerio. Story 110. I think it would depend on how I found out. If she came to me and offered the information freely, I would likely accept it as a mistake and move on. If I found out after months of lying, then we would be done. Story 111. I do not have a spouse. When a girlfriend cheated on me, I left her and later had a one-night stand with her best friend that turned into a year-long relationship. Story 112. Divorced. No cheating involved, but I would have been out of there in 18 seconds if she had. Story 113. She did. I did not. We were both in the throes of active addiction. We are both clean now. I have been clean for 9 years and she for 5. We are different people now, but we remain responsible for the pain and chaos we caused back then. I fully trust her that nothing like that will ever happen again. Took a lot of work in therapy, and I love our relationship now. Story 114. Depends. Physically, as long as she was the one to tell me, I'd do the same. I don't really mind, and nothing would have changed on my side. I treat it like drinking or taking drugs, and I'm not jealous at all. Mentally, absolutely. I would not be with a person who does not want to be with me or whom I cannot trust. Story 115. Yes, we made a vow to be faithful, and cheating would be a massive breach of that promise. When you marry someone, you put your heart on the line and trust your partner to protect it. Cheating completely destroys that trust, and I do not think I could ever open my heart again to someone who did that to me. Story 116. It would depend. A situation like that almost always carries much more nuance than most people are willing to admit. Why did they cheat? With whom? What was going on in our relationship at the time? Why did they not feel they could come to me with a problem or unmet need in the relationship? Do not get me wrong. Cheating is one of the worst things a person can do in a relationship. Saying I would still discuss it does not mean I would take them back or stay. It would have to be a very compelling reason or circumstance. But it would be dishonest to pretend it could not happen. Story 117. If someone cheated and I found out, it means they do not respect me or our relationship, and it is time to move on. Story 118. My fiancé did. Not physically. It was all online. Flirting, exchanging explicit photos, and more. But I forgave him. He was on drugs. I think that was what caused it. That was 2.5 years ago. Since then, he has done everything to show that it was a mistake. I believe second. Chances are possible, but the person must take responsibility and want to change. He felt awful about it and has shown me he was sorry. He shared passwords, gave access to his phone at any time, and did everything he could to rebuild trust. It really depends on the person and the situation. Story 119. No. I would kick them out of the house because it's my house and they have not contributed to maintenance at all, which I can prove. Story 120. Leave them? No, I would kick her the fuck out of my house. Story 121. No. I actually urged him to hook up with this hot man who was clearly flirting with him recently. He had a great time. The first 4 years of monogamy were enough. Story 122. Absolutely. I have not dated for the last 5 years. No justification needed. Story 123. I am very surprised by many comments from people saying they would stay. No judgment, but there is no question that I would leave. The cheating spouse does not respect you. It does not matter whether the cheating is physical or emotional, or whether they were too drunk and made a mistake. They made a choice to betray you, and I would never be able to look at them the same way. Story 124. Yes, he knows. I told him before we got married that if he ever cheated on me or started beating me, I would leave him. He would never lay a finger on me in a violent manner. He has never even raised his voice. Story 125. I would leave them because it is not the cheating as much as it is the lying and betrayal. Story 126. I am genuinely curious. Have people's thoughts on this changed over time and depending on upbringing? There are many examples of polyamorous relationships throughout history across cultures. I will probably catch some flack for this, but are we that much more evolved as a species, or has our morality shifted? I welcome a discussion. Personally, it would depend on the person I was with and on the kind of connection we had. Story 127. Yes, I love myself too much to be someone's maybe or to be treated with disrespect. Story 128. I made her leave. Why do I have to find a new place to live? Story 129. Yes, I would leave. It would be the hardest thing I have ever done. But besides communication, trust is the most important thing to me. If he cheated, it means that not only did he break my trust, but he thought so little of me beforehand that he failed to communicate his needs to me or, at the very least, failed to give me the courtesy of leaving me first. Story 130. If it was a one-off impulsive act while they were under the influence, and they told me about it unprompted and immediately, I would most likely give them a chance to fix things. For example, they went out drinking with friends, got very drunk, kissed someone on the dance floor, came home and told me. I would not be thrilled, but I could work through it because the drunken kiss would not be the deal breaker. Sober lying would be. However, if there has been any kind of pattern of deceit or a series of decisions to either hide or continue what was happening, then no. To take the above example, a drunken kiss on the dance floor, then he takes an Uber to her place, sleeps with her, and comes back in the morning. Even if he told me the second he walked in the door, there were too many decision points where he chose to continue down that path. There were too many opportunities to turn around and back out of the situation, and he chose not to. I would not be able to forgive that. Story 131. I would leave. It is not just about love but about protecting yourself. They have risked your physical health by potentially exposing you to sexually transmitted diseases you could pass on to any children you might have because you did not know to get treatment. They have also risked your financial well-being by potentially introducing a second family or a lawsuit in the case of a workplace affair. It is not just the lying or the heartbreak. It is the exposure to all kinds of risk you did not sign up to take. Story 132. I would cut my hand off immediately and do my damnedest to make it look like an accident. The cheater is gone, and I get appendage pay. Story 133. No, but I would hole up in the basement and emotionally close myself off. Story 134. If you want to know what actually happens when things get real, do not ask random people who have no idea and make guesses. Instead, visit the subreddit called Surviving Infidelity. Story 135. Yes, once trust is broken, the relationship will be frayed forever. Story 136. I would immediately ghost them and communicate through a lawyer. I would not even give them the satisfaction of hearing my voice again. Story 137. He cheated emotionally. I never had any proof of anything physical. He begged, he showed change, we made agreements, and I stayed. I wish I had left. Years of gaslighting and emotional abuse followed. I still have no proof, only strong suspicion of physical cheating, but because he was persuasive with words, I doubted myself so much. So I will end with one tip for everyone in doubt. A cheater does not stop cheating. They only learn to hide it better. Emotionally or physically, it does not matter. The damage is the same in the end. Edit. I learned from this. No matter how much I love a future partner, if they ever cheat, I will leave immediately. No second chances, no hesitation. Story 138. I would leave. Trust is a big deal to me, and I trust my wife greatly. If that trust were gone, I would not see a reason to stay. I would not remarry or have any more children. I would need to take significant measures if I ever divorced. I have a contingency plan in case that ever happens. Story 139. Yes, I would have to. You know how people say to forgive and forget? I know I would never be able to. I could never trust him again, and part of me would remain suspicious. It would make me anxious, worrying about it happening again, and I do not think I could live my life like that. Saying this may make it seem that I do not love my husband unconditionally, but that is my honest answer. Story 140. If I were in a good marriage and did not have to work, I could not care less. At 20, I felt very differently than I do at 39, working very hard at a job I hate for a 2-bedroom apartment. I would tolerate a lot of difficulties for a financially stable marriage to a man who was at least polite and respectful to my face. Story 141. I wouldn't leave, but I would be happy to load all her belongings into a moving truck and deliver them to the man who slept with her, so he would have to put up with her. Story 142. Yes. It would have taken me 11 years of effort while they avoided the repair work necessary to fix the relationship. Then, when I finally threw in the towel, they would act hurt and accuse me of giving up. Oh wait, that is exactly what is happening. I am on my way out and have never been happier, except when I trusted blindly. Story 143. They clearly do not want to be in that relationship anymore. If they cannot tell you what is going on and need to be with someone else, that relationship has ended. Cheaters are likely to cheat again or have multiple partners. Story 144. My brother and his wife are going through this. She cheated a few years ago, and their lives are still miserable because of it. Quitting her job, having another baby, being on the headset around the clock, and self-medicating did not help. A relationship without trust is a relationship without happiness. Story 145. I would end the marriage, but because life is expensive and we parent together well, we would probably continue living together. Story 146. I've been cheated on in a 4-year live-in, non-marital dating relationship and engagement. I discovered it, and at first she denied it and only confessed after I showed proof in the form of texts that had been forwarded to her iPad. She said it was a mistake, that she came to her senses a few weeks in and broke it off. The damage was done. We tried to make it work and went to counseling. Every therapy session, the therapist would begin by asking, "So do you both want to continue? Do you want to make this work?" I answered yes, saying I loved her and would do anything to go back to how it was before. Then, 3 weeks in, I realized it would never be the same. The amount of energy I was using and the anxiety I had were off the charts. Every time the text chime dinged, or every morning and afternoon, I was convinced they'd text or call during her long commute home. The questions in my mind: how could they find the time? How could they hide it? Then the instances of weird excuses or stories about her whereabouts. Oh, that was the day she was taking a training class for her continuing education units. Damn it, she wasn't. Or that was the night her shift changed and she had to pull a double. Nope, she was at a hotel. Dare I ask to see her phone? No? Yes? What difference would it make? After all, she'd just be better at hiding it and communicating some other way, right? Maybe. I don't know. The anger and anxiety popped up at the worst times. I didn't have the energy to deal with the mental exhaustion and second-guessing everything, day and night, even in my dreams. It was the first thought when I woke up. In the 3rd week of therapy, I said, "Before you ask, no. I don't think I do want to make it work, nor can I put it behind me." I excused myself and left her to finish the session alone. The moment I walked out the door of the therapist, I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I wasn't sad or angry, just resigned to the fact that I'd be starting over without her. I had 3 weeks of being sad and angry. We spoke calmly once more, and I said nothing could reestablish the vacuum seal we used to have, and I couldn't go through life resenting her or wondering what if. She acted as though it wasn't a big deal. Of course not. She was a willing participant and had validation from another lover. That was 15 years ago. Last I heard, she was still bouncing from one relationship to another. I found a great woman and we've been married 12 years. It's never worth it. Leave. Story 147. No. I cheated financially, so she has the moral right to do anything she wants. Strangely enough, she does not agree. Story 148. I'd leave. I want to set a good example for my daughter and raise her to never put up with such behavior, no matter how much she loves someone. Story 149. I would leave immediately. If I cannot trust them or they do not consider me good enough, I will go. Story 150. Heck yeah, I would. I know too many people who take them back, even if it is just texts or emotional affairs, and the significant other is still so unaware and sets the bar so low that I could not deal with that. Story 151. Yes, I would give her the chance to take responsibility and accept the consequences of her actions. Story 152. I would make him leave. Our home would not be a safe place for him after I found out. I would drive us both crazy trying to make sure he was not cheating again. The merciful thing for everyone involved would be to end it. Story 153. He cheated and I left. I refused to be faithful to a community supply chain manager. Story 154. Honestly, why would you stay in a marriage or a relationship where someone cheated on you? Story 155. I didn't cheat and I was still left to struggle. But I digress. I have and I will. Story 156. I could not live with her. She would have to leave. I would change the password on all our financial accounts, then send her packing. Story 157. It depends on the situation, but no matter what, I couldn't imagine not living in the same house as my kids, even if the romantic relationship was effectively over. Story 158. Yes, that is the ultimate deal breaker. As soon as the divorce was final, they would never hear from me again. Story 159. In a heartbeat. No social media posts. No anger. Just gone. Story 160. I did not leave. I cheated as revenge and went on vacation with someone else. Now we are both haunted for eternity, and it is not great. Do not cheat. I think we stayed together for the children, but I do not know how it would have been without them, so I cannot say. Story 161. Do you think that betrayal of trust just stops there? Absolutely not. Story 162. It would be tough. We have 3 children, and I know that, as a man, even if she were unfaithful, I would be put through the ringer in family court. I would lose custody and pay a large percentage of my monthly income in child support. Staying married until the children are 18 for the sake of my financial future would be hard not to consider. Story 163. It's important to note that not everyone leaves immediately. Some of us try to stick it out for a while to see if things change. In my case, I lasted about a year, but it's never the same whether they do it again or not. The idea eats you up inside until you are no longer the same person. Story 164. I would leave because if I did not make her happy, I would want her to end it anyway. No one should stay out of pity or remorse. Story 165. I was married for 23 years. I found out from this woman that he had been cheating with her and a few other women for 19 years, so I made him leave. Story 166. Yes, it would break me and change things forever. I have been in relationships affected by infidelity. I cannot come back from that. I have also watched people try to repair marriages after infidelity, and it is a joke, sad at best. Story 167. Frankly, it depends on the situation. If it was a one-night, one-time thing, I think I would be okay with it. If it was an affair of the heart or an ongoing relationship lasting months or years, that is a different story. Story 168. Yes, because I do not have time to play marriage police with someone I cannot trust anymore. Story 169. At the very least, I would partially agree. I would allow a hall pass, and we would have a more pragmatic relationship rather than a protective, loving one. It would be very close to a limited swingers arrangement or an open relationship. But that would be for about 15 years of marriage. Someone I am dating? Laughing out loud. See you. Story 170. I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on the circumstances. I could accept a momentary weakness if he were honest with himself, but definitely not if it were repeated or intentional. Story 171. I was cheated on twice. I was willing to stay for my kids, but ultimately it was over, so we are divorcing now. Story 172. Absolutely. She had her knees over her head and let him choose which hole. You all are crazy to take that back. Story 173. We both cheated and stayed together. It was not straightforward cheating. Our relationship was falling apart and postpartum issues messed me up mentally. As far as I know, it was only emotional, and the same was true for my partner. We are still married and happy, with no secrets, no stress, and open phones. I would normally leave, but some circumstances make it more reasonable to try to work things out. Story 174. Most likely yes. If it were a friend or coworker, 100% yes. They were drunk at a bar and something happened. I'm not crazy about it. Maybe I would try, but that's a big maybe. Story 175. Not immediately. I made a promise before God for better or for worse. I will do what I can to see if it is salvageable before throwing in the towel. Story 176. Apply the one-chance rule, then go scorched earth. Tell their parents, friends, and coworkers. Contact human resources at their workplace if applicable. Story 177. It was not my spouse but my fiancé, whom I caught having sex with men. I ended it. Story 178. Yes, I am dating for marriage. I will not marry someone who cheats. I do not care whether it is early or late in the relationship. Mainly, things can be communicated and arranged, such as a hall pass or a breakup. There is no need to lie or hide if you are happy and not a selfish person. Story 179. Yes, I would leave. If we agreed on monogamy, I honor it and expect the same. That foundation of trust keeps me attached and attracted to the person. If that agreement is broken, I feel nothing for them. I appreciate that about myself. It has made leaving people in my past easy and is a true blessing. When I am done, I am done. I am fine with non-monogamy as long as we explicitly discuss it and actively keep each other informed. Story 180. I have been through this. There were other issues before the cheating happened. I asked that we see a therapist about our relationship and marriage, but I was on my own. This experience taught me that I was often alone. That was my reason for leaving. If it had been only the cheating, it would have been different. Story 181. Unfortunately, I am too financially tied to her. I would leave eventually and my feelings for her would be gone. But it would take some time to disentangle our finances. Story 182. If they have the ability to do it once, then they have the ability to do it again. Story 183. Hell yes. I am selfish. I do not want to share my boyfriend. If he wants to cheat, he is welcome to leave me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.